Step one, we're going to look at the tire and the wheel. We're going to look for damages. We're going to look for any damages on the tread. Perhaps the tread is completely worn out and there might be some steel belts exposed. We want to make sure we keep our hands clear of that. So a good look at that before we start. And then before we actually start to do the tire process, we need to inspect the wheel for any damage that might have occurred. So that way we can note it to the service manager and the service advisor. So we're just going to look around to see if there's any damage. Although our wheel is not in the best of shape, if there were any damage that were to it, say that there was a bend, a crack, a blemish of any sort, we would note that on the repair order and show the service advisor, so that way the dealership or the service department does not have to take responsibility for any damage that you might not have occurred while you did the repair. So we're going to remove the tire valve from inside the core from the valve itself and deplete all of the air pressure that's inside the tire. Failure to let all of the air out can cause some damage to the wheel and tire if we were to try to remove it before it's done. Once all of the air is completely depleted, then we can move on to the next step. The next step, we're going to position the tire up against these rubber blocks. These help to prevent any damage to the wheel. So we're going to set that up against there. And we also want to take note that the valve is going to be on the back side over here from this shoe that's going to press here. If we were to put this anywhere over on this side, when the shoe comes forward, it could damage the sensor that's on the opposite side of this valve. So from this point, what we're going to do is we're going to use this lever, which goes up and down, to move the arm in the appropriate direction. So if we want to go in, we raise it up, and then once we get it into position, as close as we can to the edge of the rim, we're going to go ahead and break the bead, and the tire goes in. Now we've separated the outside of the tire from the rim itself, and we're going to reposition the tire to where we're going to do the same thing on this side. Now we're going to have to still be careful, because when you flip it around, now this valve is right here. So we're going to just lift the tire and spin that out of the way, and right now that valve is now positioned down here, far enough away to where we're not going to cause damage. And we're going to repeat the process. And then this pushes it away. Now there are times this tire has been off before, so it's easy to remove. Should this have been a tire that had been on the wheel for a long period of time, we would probably have to move this about a third of the way around and then repeat this process. Because this side, the way that the wheel is formed, normally you have to break that bead in 2 separate times. Now at this point, we're going to lift this tire up and set it down on top of the tire machine. Now we're going to come over to the side. We're going to activate the clamps that I showed you how they worked before. Now in order to engage, we're going to put our foot underneath of it and lift up. All the way up. And now those shoes are now locked against the inside of the wheel. Now once we've got our wheel and tire locked into place on the top of the machine, position of this valve core is very critical, because remember, we have a sensor on the bottom side of that. So we're going to move the tire. We can go either direction by lifting our foot up on this toe pedal. It goes backwards, or if we go forwards, it can go all the way around. This machine operates electrically. Other machines will use compressed air to operate. Once we have this over here, we can bring our fixture arm down and then into place. Now this arm is now locked into place. It's height. It will not go up and down. There is an adjustment that needs to be made right here in this step. And what this does is this allows us to keep this arm ever so slightly off of the edge of the wheel, and it's going to protect us from scratching the wheel. So from here, we move on to the next step. We're going to reach down and remove our tire lever. Tire levers come in many different shapes and forms, but this is a general sense. So once our tire lever is in place right here, noting the position of the valve core, we are going to lift this up and over simply like this. So we're going to stick our tire lever between the tire and this fixture. We're going to lift it over. Once we have it over the lip of this fixture, we'll activate the turning rotation going down. And that is going to help lift this tire up off the first part of the wheel. We're going to relocate the tire back to where the valve is back to this fixture again. Now in this next step, what we're going to need to do requires a touch of coordination. First, we're going to get our tire on our lever on the lower part of the lower edge of this, the rubber part of the tire. And we're going to start to lift up on both sides. Then we're going to lift that tire over that metal part of the fixture till our lever is horizontal again. Once we've got that, we're going to rotate the tire one more time until our tire comes loose. It's now loose. We will unlock the fixture, swing that out of the way, and our tire is now off of the rim. Once we've removed the tire from the rim, we do need to take an inspection of the rim surface itself. If we didn't clean this part of this imperfection right here, which is a combination of corrosion and tire material, and we were to place a new tire back upon this, this would actually start to leak air on a regular basis. That's otherwise known as a rim leak. So we'll cover the cleaning process of this at another time. But for now, know that at this point, we're going to be cleaning both this surface and inspecting the valve itself. Okay, at this point, there's a lubrication brush and material on the side of the machine. We're going to take that and we're going to apply lubricant around the tire on this bead surface right here. Now both here and on the opposite side, we're going to apply a liberal amount. Liberal does not mean where it's slathered all the way up the side wall of the tire. Liberal amount means this surface right here gets lubricated, and that's it. As we begin the installation process, we're going to have to note we have to have the tire valve located on this corner of the machine. Otherwise, we would possibly damage the sensor itself. Tire sensor looking like this, what we would do is we would actually break this sensor part right up clean off. Customers aren't too fond of having to buy a $70 sensor because we didn't heed the warnings. So once we have our tire valve located in this corner, we can begin the installation process. So once we have our tire valve in the proper location, we're going to begin the installation part of it. We're just simply going to pick our tire up, set it down so we can swing our fixture back into place and lock it down. Now, on this fixture, I'll show you. This is the part we are going to be using on this fixture at this time. We use this to remove, this side to install. So we'll swing this into place, lock it into position. Then we're going to position our tire up against that installation side. And the left hand is critical here. Always be careful of the fingers, but we need to keep pressure on this side of the tire. Now once we're in this position with the tire in place, we can activate the rotation by pressing our foot down to give us clockwise spin. And that is going to rotate our tire right back down. Now from here, We're going to repeat that process. We're going to move the tire to where it's loose on the side of the fixture, but we have to move our tire valve back into the correct position. So let's go backwards because we didn't require very much movement. Our tire valve is now located right here. I can slide it down to show you right here, but we're going to spin our tire around to get up against the fixture on this side. And then we're going to push down with our left hand right here, being extremely careful with our fingers, trying to keep our fingers out towards the tread, okay? It's very easy to put your hand right here. So we want to keep our palm into the wheel. And then we're going to activate the turning of the wheel once we get everything over here and here in correct position. And we're just going to rotate that around. Now our tire is back on the wheel. We can unlock the swing arm and get that back out of the way. Now we're ready to fill the tire. Okay, now the filling procedure, we've got a gauge, we've got a tire bleed valve, we have a pedal down here. Now this pedal has two positions. The two positions are, the first one, we're going to push air into the hose. The hose is going to go onto the valve. But the second position is when you push it all the way down, we're going to activate a blast of air from underneath that's going to go into the tire itself. It's called the bead blaster. It's loud, it can startle you, but that's the part that helps get us to seat the tire back onto the rim. So I'll connect this. There's a locking mechanism. You just activate that with your thumb, push it down, let off. That is now going to stay on the valve. Now what we want to do is lift up on the tire and then push down all the way, and once we do that, it's going to activate the blaster, and then we immediately take our foot halfway off to where only the air is going to come out of the hose to finish the fill process. So it's all the way down, halfway up, finish the fill process. So I'm going to do the activation just like I said. We want to keep our hands clear because when you get your fingers caught in that pop, it's going to hurt. We heard the two pops. The first that you usually seat is almost always the bottom bead, and then the top bead is usually the second. Now once we do that, right now, okay, we'll move the camera. And you can see the gauge. We're going to just use our halfway down on this pedal to continue the fill process. Once we get up to a certain point, the air will start to pulse. Right now we're at 28 psi. We're going to go up to 35 psi. You can hear the air pulsing now. Now we're at 37, but we still have to put the valve back in. So we're going to lose a little bit of pressure. So we're going to put the valve back into the tool first and hold it with one hand, pinching it. We're going to take this off and then put that in and screw that back into place. We'll put the hose back on. And now we're down to like 33 psi. We'll just add a little bit of pressure to get 35. Now if we had too much pressure, we could let that off right here. But we are at 35 psi now. We can remove our hose. There's only one more step left. So at this point, we're just simply going to deactivate the clamps and remove the tire from the machine. Pressing our foot down. We're now done.